welcome to our English news edition coming to you from Canal, Algérie in today's top stories. The major decisions taken during the last Council of Ministers displays the President's unsatisfaction regarding the government's pace in dealing with certain files that affected the daily life of citizens, a red line for the head of state. The National Day for Cohesion between the People and Army is celebrated today to mark the strong link between the two sides stemming from the values of the National People's Army. The agro-industrial company Vital snatches the first quality award for the year 2022 despite the tough competition of 25 other candidates. And protest movements continue in Morocco in quest of denouncing social injustice and the blatant absence of the Makhzen authorities. Good evening, those were the headlines. First, the last Council of Ministers, which was crowned with important decisions, displayed the President's unsatisfaction with the government's pace in dealing with certain files affecting thereby the citizens, a red line for the head of state. More insights with Melissa Kobash.
The President of the Republic expressed his unsatisfaction concerning the government's pace in dealing with files, notably long deadlines, approximate figures, and decisions that disturb the daily life of citizens and economic operators. The President didn't display neither authoritarianism or protectionism. He didn't instruct at any time the demolishing of illegal buildings, but instead ordered to take the necessary measures to prevent it from happening in the future. The President is working for an Algeria open to the world, which is why he didn't prohibit imports, which are necessary for every country in the world. His demand is the end of the anarchy. He instructed the improvement of the sector to put an end to overcharging, source of illegal transfer of currency, reaching $1 billion. This consolidation operation of imports allowed to reveal a number of importers whose figure has fallen from 43,000 to 14,000 registered in the trade register. The citizen is a red line and remains the top priority. Every action of the President of the Republic aims at reflecting the will of Algerians that elected him on December the 12th, 2019, and who rejects any form of old practices, including authoritarianism and protectionism. Algeria of 2020 is very different. It's on the right path and led by a president who gained the respect and appreciation of all these social segments. President Abdelmajid Tebboune remains faithful to his 54 commitments and to the immense aspirations of his people.
As instituted by the President of the Republic, Algeria celebrates the National Day of Cohesion between the people and the army, a strong bond stemming from the lofty values of the National People's Army. Story by Ines Gilou.
لك عشنا يا وطني نفدي بالروح أراضينا قد كنا أمس عمالقة.
The ties between the National People's Army and the Algerian people are unshakable, united by the love of homeland and patriotism, a union that gives strength and makes it possible to overcome all kinds of adversity and achieve great victories. This cohesion remains steadfast in the face of all attempts to destabilize and threaten Algeria. A worthy heir to the National Liberation Army, the National People's Army remains the impregnable fortress of the nation, the defender of its borders and the guarantor of its security and stability. Throughout the different historical stages, this continuous cohesion between the people and their army was also beautiful and visible, and history will remember that the army was always present in difficult circumstances. In addition to its role as defender of national sovereignty and its unfailing commitment to preserving the country's security and stability, the National People's Army has always been mobilized during the various crises and disasters that have hit Algeria. This is how the elements of the National People's Army carried out their humanitarian mission with dedication and professionalism by developing large material and human resources on the ground, as is the case during the fires, the earthquakes and the health crisis linked to COVID that seriously affected our country. In all cases and hardships, the National People's Army spared no effort to save citizens, open roads during bad weather and provide aid and assistance to the stricken population. With a great deal of patriotism, the National People's Army embodies the greatness and authenticity of Algeria, an Algeria that is moving steadily towards development and prosperity.
To the south of the country now, the home of one of the most important projects in the field of mines, with a production capacity of 12 million tons of iron per year, Garajbilat mine in Tindouf is becoming a hub for small, medium-sized enterprises as well as startups operating in the same sector. Najah Tayar tells us more.
In the southern east of the country, more precisely in Garajbilat, 170 kilometers from Tindouf, we find the third largest iron reserve in the world. The exploitation of these reserves constitutes a strategic project which will allow the country's economy to get rid of its dependence on hydrocarbons and move on to the iron production and export. There is a real political will to encourage and promote the national production through the creation of thousands of small and medium enterprises and startups that will contribute to the national economy development through the optimal exploitation of energy and gas resources, then moving towards economic change and structuring industries. The Garajbilat mine contains a reserve of more than 3 billion tons of iron, enough to make Algeria one of the largest producers and suppliers of this ore in the world. This project consists of launching a new railway line linking Garajbilat to Bashar, which will boost economic activity throughout the region. The development of major industrial projects, particularly in the field of energy and mining, is a priority for the government in order to diversify investments and make the best use of the country's natural resources.
Other news, the Algerian agro-industrial company Civital snatched the first quality award for the year 2022. This lofty move was introduced to encourage the economic enterprises to increase their production and improve their products so as to face up the tough competition being imposed by the foreign firms. The ceremony was chaired by the industry minister. In the Algerian-Jordanian cooperation, the Prime Minister Ayman bin Abdurrahman received an important ministerial delegation headed by Youssef Eshamali, the Jordanian Minister of Industry, Trade and Supply. The discussions were an opportunity to review the bilateral relations and affirm the willingness of the two sides to consolidate cooperation between the two countries via the promotion of investment opportunities in line with the guidelines of the two countries' leaders. In a related context, the Minister of Industry, Ahmed Zagdar, and the Jordanian Minister of Industry, Trade and Supply, Youssef Eshamali, adopted a roadmap for the period of 2023-2025 with the aim of consolidating economic cooperation between the two countries. This took place at the end of the Jordanian delegation's multi-sectorial visit to Algeria, a visit crowned with a meeting between the two countries' delegations on the sidelines of bilateral meetings gathering Algerian ministers with their Jordanian counterparts. This roadmap, which contains the expected main activities and fields of cooperation, as well as the mechanisms of their achievement, is part of the meeting that gathered the President of the Republic with the Jordanian King Abdullah II, during which the two leaders expressed their readiness to consolidate cooperation between the two countries in the different fields. In a new activity, the Croatian State Secretary of Foreign Affairs, Frano Matuzic, was received by the Foreign Affairs and National Community Abroad Minister Mtala Mamra, a meeting during which the two parties discussed the results of the third session of the political consultations between Algeria and Croatia, as well as the ways and means to further deepen political dialogue between the two countries. The Croatian State Secretary of Foreign Affairs Frano Matušić was equally received by the Energy Minister Mohammed Arqab, an opportunity to tackle the cooperation relations between the two countries in the energy sector, as well as investment opportunities. In another story, the Sahrawi prisoners detained in 8 Malul 1 penitentiary in Morocco started on Monday an unlimited hunger strike to protest against the violation of their legitimate rights. In a communique, the League for the Protection of Sahrawi Prisoners stressed that it is about Abd al-Mula Mohammed al-Hafidi, Mohammed Salah Boujam'a Dada, and Al-Hussein al-Bashir Ahmad-Dor. The prisoners are denouncing the unfair trials to which they were victims and which ended in unjust sentences of up to 12 years of prison. In the Western Saharan file news, a Norwegian and Italian delegations visited the Sahrawi refugee camps. The association's representatives and activists met the Sahrawi Authority members, to whom they expressed their support to their fair cause. Najah Tayyar has the details.
The ceasefire declaration violation by Morocco in Western Sahara continues to arouse strong reactions from international youth organizations and political parties. A case in point, the large Norwegian delegation which headed for the Sahrawi refugee camps to show their support for this just cause.
We're here to both experience and see how life is like in the Sahrawi refugee camps, both to show solidarity, to observe.
I'm so proud to be here today in the Western Sahara, and one thing I'm really proud of is to see all of the parties in Norway, including the government parties, supporting the people of Western Sahara.
An Italian delegation was also present in the Sahrawi refugee camps, where twinning agreements were signed between Italian associations and representatives of the Sahrawi people. We are here to reaffirm our support for the Sahrawi cause. Me and all the delegation members who accompany me, we call on the Sahrawi people to remain firm. We are on their side. Unwavering support expressed on a daily basis by authorities, organizations and associations around the world to recall once again the legitimacy of the struggle of the Sahrawi people to snatch their freedom.
And the Moroccan people keep taking to the streets to voice their fed up with their current situation. Trade unions, lawyers and human rights activists all condemned the Makhzen regime's policy and the absence of social justice that plunged the country into an unprecedented social crisis. More details with Mehdi Sakobash.
No signs of slowing down is witnessed in the Moroccan streets. Packed with angry citizens, Moroccans can't take it anymore and are out as usual to denounce the social injustices perpetrated against them, including the high cost of living.
The prices are very high. It's incredible. Everything is so expensive in this country. Every sector is affected, especially employment, health and education.
Trade unions, lawyers, human rights activists all condemn the Makhzen's policy that led to an unprecedented social and economic crisis marked with poverty, unemployment and violation of human rights.
It's a despicable policy. It violated every human right, but what can we expect from a regime that normalized its relation with the
Lawyers have warned against the deterioration of Moroccans' daily life and blamed the policy adopted by the regime. A social and economic crisis that keeps worsening since the normalization of relations with the Zionist entity, a decision still rejected by the people.
نحن الآن نقول في هذه اللحظة وباسم الجبهة الاجتماعية الفرع ديال الدار البيضاء أقول أننا الآن حنا في المغرب كنعيشوا حالة استثناء غير معلنة غيقولوها لنا.
Nothing seems to calm down Moroccans, not even the repression and violent practices carried out by the Makhzen forces.
To sports now, GS Kabylie is out of the Football Cup competition following their surprising defeat versus CAF Khamis Miliana with 2-0. The game was held in Aindfla Stadium on Tuesday. Let's head now to Biskra province and more precisely the region of Tolga, a favorite destination for the local and foreign tourists. Let's discover more with Ines Kilo.
Cottage that offers an atypical concept here, agro-tourism. It is by chance that we met this group of foreign tourists who had just arrived in this new tourist residence located at the heart of Palm Grove in Fugala.
It is the only tourist facility in this locality. The residence can accommodate 73 people for the moment. An extension is planned. It should be mentioned that no palm trees was touched during the construction of this building. And this what gives it a special character, that of the oasis tourism, a new concept which will take shape here. The tourist will be in direct contact with nature, namely the palm trees and products of local agriculture. But not only this, the local gastronomy and the handicraft of the region will also be promoted.
The entry into effect of the decision to facilitate the visa insurance to foreign tourists had brought them in drafts, and this measure is also a breath of fresh air for operators in this sector, which has suffered heavily from the COVID pandemic. Many of them have traveled all over the world. Nevertheless, their first visit to Algeria, notably to Tbilisi, Batna and Biskra, they were encouraged to come back.
It's my second visit to Algeria and I'm delighted. I've traveled a lot, but this country mesmerized me with its beauty, not to mention the welcome and kindness of the Algerians, alongside many things, including the history and culture binding our two peoples. I love coming here. This will certainly not be my last visit.
With the latest procedures and the different local tourist assets, this vital sector is expected to keep booming to the great delight of professionals and local inhabitants.
And with that, our today's news edition comes to a close. Thank you for tuning in and goodbye.